Welcome to a brand new episode of DC and RC. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's my boy Ryan Clark. I have no idea where Ryan is right now, but I do know you can find him all over the ESPN airways. RC, how you doing, my friend?
What's up, my boy? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Good. Listen, coming up later in the show, we're going to talk to Colby Covington as he gets ready for his rematch against the champ Kamaru Usman. You and I will draft the fighters that people love to hate, and we obviously gonna tap in.
Are you gonna cheat though, DC?
Tap out.
DC, are you gonna cheat?
Ryan, we gonna tap in or we gonna tap out?
Are you gonna cheat on the list?
RC, I don't understand why you keep doing this to me and painting me in the light that is not flattering for my skin complexion. Ryan Clark, though. Last weekend, Aspen Ladd fought Norma Demont, and it was an absolute uproar in regards to the way her coach, Jim West, spoke to her. I'm going to read you some of these tweets, and it was astounding to think how this one here took the cake, though. Miesha Tate goes, "This is abuse. What a douche." That abuse. Ryan, this one drove me a little bit nuts. Bilal Muhammad goes, "I feel like this guy's coaching for the camera right now." And that's another point that I really take offense to because it seemed like the guy was doing his job. And then Lando Venata says, "Hey, corner man, motivate, don't scold and criticize." But this is only the tip of the iceberg, Ryan. People were going crazy on this man on Saturday night in regards to the way that he was talking to his athlete to the point that he apologized. RC, when you were seeing all this, what did you think of the way he was approaching talking to Aspen Ladd?
Well, I think the one thing I have to preface my comments with is because I am friends with you now, because you are my co-host, we've actually shared different videos of coaching. And the most recent that you shared even before this fight was Jim West and Aspen Ladd. And we were kind of going back and forth because it's such a huge topic for us. We were going back and forth about what type of coaching do we like. And she comes out in the next round after being talked to like that, after someone being honest with them, someone actually imploring her to do more with the same type of language that Jim used this time. And she comes out, throws the big left, ground and pound. She wins the fight. And so I was like, yeah, that's the type of coach I want. That's the type of dude I want in my corner. And so now we fast forward to this, and we're kind of getting the same things. One, we're getting brutal honesty about where we are in the fight, where Aspen Ladd was in the fight. And also you have the way that he's speaking. Now, I played for a guy named Greg Williams. Greg Williams would dog cuss you, call you every name but a man of God, right? When he was trying to coach you. But then when you'd go into his office, he'd cross his legs like a scholar and speak to you very calmly, very respectfully. But that was the way he coached. Coach LeBeau, who's a Hall of Famer, Dick LeBeau, coordinator in Pittsburgh, never cursed, never raised his voice. But that was his way. And we also responded to him in kind. And so I think for an athlete, if you understand this is the way your trainer or your coach approaches their job, I believe that you can handle it. Now, here's where the issues come in, or here's where I believe we start to question whether or not this is the way to coach your athlete. One, it's a man and it's a woman. We are now in a time where we understand, you look at Miesha Tate saying this is abuse. We understand what mental abuse is. We understand what emotional.
And you know what else though, Ryan? One quick part about that real fast. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But Miesha Tate saying this is abuse also is alluding to their relationship outside of fighter-coach, right? Because that's Aspen Ladd's boyfriend too. So she's almost painting an unfair picture of Jim West in their relationship, RC. And I just think that for us to ignore that as you continue to finish your point is not fair, because I think that's where she's judging him opposed to just fighter-athlete, when in that situation it is fighter athlete.
No, but you're absolutely right. No, that was the point I was about to get to, though, DC.
Okay, sorry.
For people, no, you're right. For people in the UFC world or the MMA world, they view it through that prism, right? Because me watching on the outside, if I don't hear commentators say it or analysts say it, I don't know their relationship. I'm just looking at it as coach, athlete, right? The same thing with Lauren Murphy when she's fighting against Shevchenko. I'm looking at it as coach, athlete, and now you get to decide, or you get to realize that there's more depth and more layers to that relationship. So even for you, DC, should he coach differently because of their relationship, or should he be perceived differently because of their relationship?
Oh my God, Ryan, this is one of the topics that I want to touch on so badly, because the reality is this: in that moment, the outside relationship is out the window. And there was another point was made earlier over the weekend that pointed to the fact that people are in these relationships in work and fighting.
Right.
So Aspen Ladd and Jim West are dating. We saw Lauren Murphy a few weeks ago with her husband cornering her.
Yes.
Doing the absolute wrong thing, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what Lauren Murphy's thought was on the way Aspen Ladd was getting coached? Oh, no, he should have did better. He should have been more thoughtful. He should. So that tells me Lauren Murphy's husband essentially had no choice but to almost reassure her when things are going absolutely wrong, because then that may go back to the house with them.
Right.
That's unfair. If you put these people, if your girlfriend or your coach or your boyfriend or your husband is in that position to coach you, he has to coach you like he is going to coach every other athlete that he has inside the octagon.
And I feel like Jim West does that. Jim West does that, though.
So it was him. That was him. That was his coaching style.
Yes.
But it's almost like we're expecting him to coach differently because it's a girl. I think the optics of it, though, Ryan, was what made people go crazy, because it seemed like Aspen was almost like shrinking within herself when he was going at her, and that's why people were up in arms.
And you know what the difference is, though, DC, and we talked about him imploring Aspen Ladd in a previous fight and her coming out and winning. We don't like to see people, quote unquote, what we call now bullied. Right. And so we're looking more at the outcome. Right. We're looking at the fact that she wasn't having success, and that what he did in the corner didn't produce success. So it almost seems like she's being beat up in the octagon, and she's also being beat up in the corner through words. But that's not what it is. What it is this is his coaching style. This is his athlete. He's put in as much time as she has to win this fight. And on the other side of it, I would have to believe that having that relationship, that personal relationship, like I know how I feel when it's my wife or my kids or a loved one. I want them to win more than I want to win. Right?
Yes.
The emotion that is involved in that. Like my son plays football. I've been driving home with Jordan from high school and almost wanted to jump in the back seat to have these conversations. And so I could only imagine the emotion from Jim West as well. And I think the way that it's shown on TV and the way that people perceive it, they perceive it in a way that he doesn't intend.
You know, and honestly, it's a fight. We're not playing croquet or anything. They're fighting. So, but when we talk about coaching, you know, there are very few minds that are better than Dean Thomas. And yesterday I had an opportunity to sit down with Dean and talk about Jim West and the situation, and this is what he had to say. As Norma Dumont and Aspen Ladd are fighting on Saturday, her coach and boyfriend is kind of laying into her. What did you make of his approach to trying to get his fighter to respond?
Well, see, I mean, it's such a tough situation because of that, like because of the relationship of being a boyfriend and so on and so forth. I mean, and really that's kind of none of our business. No. But the fact that he used the language and the tone that he used didn't really bother me as much as it did other people, because that might be his coaching style and that might be her way of responding. As we saw in her fight against Yana Kunitskaya, when he came at her, he yelled at her the same way, like he attacked her the same way, and she came out on fire. And I mean, she did damage and she won the fight because of that. So on one hand, we can't look at that performance and go, yeah, you know, he was the man. He's the one who was accountable for that. And then when he does it again and it doesn't work, we can't now look at him and go, oh, he's a bad guy.
Yeah. Dean, can you recall a situation in which you had a fighter that wasn't responding and you had to get at him in that way? Because we've seen you in fights where T Wood is in very close fights with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But you never...
I mean, and that wasn't even the worst of it. The worst was, I would have to say, his fight against Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, exactly. And, like when he was with Usman.
Yeah, and going into that fourth and fifth round, I mean, I really had to lay into him. And when I laid into him, a lot of people actually praised me for being honest and telling them the way it was.
As a coach, Dean, and as a guy that now sits at the desk and breaks down the techniques going on in the fights, when you see him go to her and it's done, what does that conversation look like when they get back to the locker room? Is the coach the one feeling like he let the athlete down? Or is it now Aspen Ladd or Tyron Woodley, in your case, feeling a little bit let down, like, wow, I didn't do what I did for 3 months leading into this thing?
I actually think it's the athlete that feels bad. I really do. Now, and this is where it gets tricky, because this is where coaches have to be careful. Obviously, coaches are frustrated, but they have to remember it's not about them and their frustrations. And that's why it can get tricky, because as the coach, you can never allow your frustration to go on to the athlete. He was allowing his frustrations to get to her instead of going, okay, this approach isn't working right now. Let me try a different approach, and being a little, and that's where it gets tricky. So I'm not totally I'm not against what he did, but I am thinking that maybe he could have used a different approach. But one thing that people don't understand is you get 60 seconds to make that decision of what you want to do. And it goes by so fast. And then when it's over, you're like, uh-oh, I hope I did the right thing. So I can't really get on him too bad for that.
You see, Dean made a point there, Ryan, that I hadn't thought about, is allowing your frustrations, because you could see Jim West get frustrated. And that was one of the situations where I was so in his corner. Like, I was completely with him, talking in the way he did, reacting the way that he did, until Dean Thomas said that. And when Dean Thomas said, as a coach, you being frustrated cannot be put onto your athlete because they're already in there in the fight. I didn't think about that, RC. As I coach kids, when they're frustrated on the wrestling mat, when I'm frustrated on the side, when I get their ear for a second, if I'm not clear and concise, if I'm just frustrated and I'm flattered, that's obviously what they're going to take and carry into the fight. And so Dean saying that Jim was frustrated, I kind of get it now, because I saw round one, I saw round two, round three, and by the third round, he was just frustrated with Aspen Ladd, the fighter, not the girlfriend, and he allowed for that to kind of dictate how he cornered her going forward. So big on Dean. But honestly, Ryan, she won the fourth round, I think, on somebody's score, the last two rounds.
Yeah, she won
on
the
somebody's
fourth
scorecard. So it worked. Yeah, I think. What did you think of what Dean had to say?
No, I think Dean makes excellent points about the finer perspective of coaching, right?
Yeah.
But we aren't talking about whether or not Jim West did a good job as a coach. We're talking about whether or not Jim West's approach, was his approach wrong? Was his approach abusive? Right? Was his approach not conducive, or was his approach not respectful in the sense of a way athlete and coach should interact? Now,
you know what's crazy, Ryan? What's crazy, RC? And I gotta say it, bro.
Go ahead.
Like, I know it feels like if it's you and Jim West yells at you like that, nobody has an issue.
You know that, though.
We're all equal today, right? So why is it such a big deal? Because it's a woman. Everybody wants to be, we all want to be treated fairly, Ryan. We all want to be treated equally. Why is this so much of a bigger deal? Because it's a girl in Aspen Ladd opposed to being a guy. We have heard Saif Saud. We have heard Bob Cook. People talk about me crying after John Jones beat me. You know what? I lost. But you know what made me cry after the first fight? Was Bob Cook walked up to me and goes, that wasn't the guy that I got in training for 3 months.
Yes, absolutely.
Very disappointing.
Yes.
So I was disappointed, so I started to cry. But nobody cares that Bob ripped into me before those rounds, or that Saif Saud does it every time, or Dean Thomas or anybody else when they're doing Tyron Woodley.
Right.
It should not be that big of a deal because it's a woman.
Well,
it shouldn't.
DC, I believe we have to understand that this is still new, right? Like we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing men fight. We're used to seeing men being talked to a certain way. You know, I was a huge Floyd Mayweather fan, and I would always laugh at his father in the corner, at his Uncle Roger in the corner, because they never really gave much insight into what should happen in the next round. They basically just cussed the entire 60 seconds. Like, I was used to seeing that, you know, but we didn't look at it that way because they were related and because it was a man. But also, we have now entered the realm where we are no longer critiquing Jim West as a coach. We're not critiquing Jim West. We're critiquing two humans and their interaction outside of what should be the coach-athlete interaction. And I think that's the difficult part, especially knowing the nature of their relationship.
Absolutely. And for the record, the things Tyson Fury's coach told him right before he went out and knocked Deontay Wilder were much worse than what Aspen heard on Saturday. Now, Ryan, I have been very clear that I am a guy that loves that. I said, hey, I would want Aspen Ladd's coach in my corner. I would want Jim West. Laura Sanko goes, I agree. I saw nothing wrong with it. Why don't people have this reaction when coaches get after male athletes? Or maybe it's just because I'm used to James Krause corner and y'all might be too soft.
Yeah.
Now, Laura Sanko is a person that's fought. She's calling fights down the Contender Series. And now Laura joins us on the conversation to kind of give her perspective in terms of how things were viewed and how people responded. And Laura, thank you for joining us first and foremost. But this is a little bit much, right? I mean, you can agree that this is crazy.
You guys hit the nail on the head. You said it, DC. You said it earlier, Ryan. I, in particular, would not be here right now, and we would not be having this conversation right now if Aspen Ladd was a guy.
Right.
I can point to 100 different examples. You said Safe Saud. I've tweeted James Krause. Those guys lay in hard to their athletes in between rounds. Teddy Atlas, one of the best cornermen in boxing, actually sat down on his fighter's stool and said, "You want to trade places with me? You want me to go out there and fight your fight?" I mean, we've seen way worse. And people praise it because it's a guy. And here's the thing. It's the reason people see that is, like you said earlier, it's the optics. We all have this sort of like, I would call it misplaced, in this particular context, misplaced chivalry. If we're all out on the night, we're at a bar, and a guy's yelling at a girl, and she's standing there, and she's not saying anything, and she's looking a little doe-eyed, right? We all have a visceral reaction to that. Me too.
Yes,
we should.
I don't want to see it, and we should. Exactly, Ryan, we should. But we're not out at a bar.
Right.
We're in the octagon, and she is an athlete, and he's the coach. Regardless of what equipment she's working with out there, she needs to be spurred to victory in whatever manner he sees fit. And he has been with her since the beginning. I've been watching Aspen Ladd since her first professional fight in Invicta, and he's been coaching her the same way the whole time. So I see absolutely no issue with it. And situations like this, you could probably tell I'm a little frustrated. The pearl clutching when it comes to women's MMA sometimes just drives me crazy. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah. So Laura, do you think after the way you view the situation, but also the way it was viewed by so many in the MMA world, that he should have apologized for the way that he treated her in his corner?
No, I absolutely do not. That is the problem right there. And I'm not going to lie. I think part of the reason I'm here talking about this issue is because I'm a woman. And sometimes this needs to be said by another woman, right?
Absolutely.
Like, he should not have to apologize for that behavior. He did absolutely nothing wrong. And when some people read that tweet, they're like, "Oh, Laura thinks Miesha Tate is soft." I do not think Miesha Tate is soft. This is not about Miesha whatsoever. Miesha Tate is as hard as they come. I happen to disagree with her on this. And I think that her comments are always going to be colored by the fact that she's talking about a future opponent. Of course she's going to have things to say about Aspen.
She's got, and honestly, Laura, she's got this thing with Aspen since a couple weeks ago with the weight miss. Yeah, right. So it's like, it seems as though this one wasn't, the Miesha Tate reaction didn't feel like it didn't feel as like real.
Yeah.
It wasn't authentic. Yes, Brian, that's the word I'm looking at.
It was a little extra.
It did, yes.
Because
it felt extra.
They're going to fight. At some point, they're likely going to fight, and you know, you have feelings about your opponents and about their coaches, and she's going to put that out there. And more power to her. Miesha has the right to have whatever opinion she wants to have. I just disagree with her on this point, and
on this one,
it speaks to a larger issue, right? Like MMA, the UFC in particular, has done such a phenomenal job of creating equality in this sport. Men and women are on the exact same platform. They are fighting alongside each other. It's the only sport where they train together day in, day out.
Yes.
It's the closest thing that you're going to get to true equality. So we can't have these moments where we're like, oh, a girl got her feelings hurt, or oh, a girl was yelled at. No, that's BS.
Well, Laura,
you know.
Oh, go ahead, DC.
I'm sorry, Ryan. You know, Laura, lately we have seen some, and this has been a reoccurring theme on our show, is it started with Lauren Murphy's husband coaching her. Then it went to John Kavanaugh coaching Johnny Walker. And then we see this. So it's like, it's a matter of what do we prefer? And for me, I prefer someone telling me the absolute truth. But then in Lauren's statement, she was opposed to the way Jim West approached it. But on the other hand, her husband was giving her, it was almost like he was comforting her in a situation where she needed to be spurred on. What is your, like, what would you prefer to hear when you're in the corner in terms of sitting there? If you're sitting there fighting, or Laura, let's take it up a level. What if your husband was your corner man?
Right.
How would you want him
God.
to approach you in between rounds?
No, that would never, ever happen for so many reasons. We don't have time on this show, but I want the truth. I want to know what's happening. I want to know why it's happening, and I want to hear instructions on what I can do to make it better. And all the stuff about Jim West not giving her technique, that's not true.
He did.
Yeah, he
it
did.
became less technical, but he's telling her to lead from the rear side,
Yes, he
find
did.
your alley, which is her lead hook, sit down on your punches. He's giving her very technical advice. She wasn't able to execute on any of it. So as the rounds went on, he got less and less technical because she wasn't, you can't talk about step 3 when she's not able to execute step 1. So while I agree with you with the frustration key, but Ryan, you're right. That's a finer point of cornering, and you're never going to have a perfect conversation in those 60 seconds. You just not. It's going to be messy sometimes. But I want to hear the truth. And I mean, you know who my coach was, DC. You've seen James Krause corner. He does not mince words whatsoever,
No.
and that's how he corners everybody.
Right. Laura, this last question is kind of twofold for me. I think the first thing is, how does the UFC, how does MMA move forward in kind of changing people's view or perspective of how women should be coached, how women should be cornered? And the second piece of that should be, when are we going to start listening to the actual fighter? Listening to the actual fighter in this situation where instead of hearing Miesha Tate say what's going on in her corner is abusive, why can't we ask Aspen Ladd? Why can't we ask even a Lauren Murphy and get their perspective on, no, I liked being coached like this. I liked the fact that he's hard on me, and that makes me fight better, which we've seen now 2 times. She gets a knockout the first time we really first notice it, and this time she wins the last 2 rounds on one card and the last round on another.
Ryan, I think you are speaking to a much broader and very interesting and important issue. And that is, I mean, not just in MMA, society, I will say, we have created this culture where we find it very easy to be offended on other people's behalf and then go to war for what we think should have happened in that situation or how we would have felt when it happened. This is a very random example, but years back, Tanya Evinger kissed me on national television, and people came at her with pitchforks and torches, sexual assault, all this stuff. And I was appalled. I'm like, this happened to me. I found it funny. I was not offended by it. It happened to me.
Right.
So I went to bat for her, like, no, you're not allowed to have that reaction. It happened to me. And I think that applies here. It's all about the athlete and what the athlete needs in that moment. And no one knows better than the coach who has spent years and years, blood, sweat, tears, all of the preparation. I think we need to have a little bit more faith in the idea that the people that the fighter is choosing to go to war with know what they're doing out there. So I think
absolutely
we should be talking about, what did Aspen think about this? And based on her comments and her demeanor, I would find it hard to believe that she had an issue with it. And if she did, they probably would settle it in private, and we wouldn't need to be having all this tweet storm about it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, but everybody wants to get upset. They always do, Laura.
Yeah, they do. But before I go, I got to say one thing. Ryan Clark, you are doing a tremendous job.
Thank you.
That's my boy right there.
Thank you so much. Right there. That means a lot.
You are doing the Lord's work, keeping this man. I'm pointing the wrong way because it's opposite. Keeping this man
I know, it's like,
in line. Because I know better than anybody how hard that is to do. He cheats.
Thank you. Very difficult.
Wait, did you say I cheat? Did you say I cheat?
You do cheat.
Ryan knows what's up. You do.
Wow, that's 2-1, DC.
Hey,
2-1.
Hey, Laura, love having you, but the time has ended now. When you start to side with Ryan Clark, the time has ended on your show. Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Your perspective is top notch. We appreciate you coming on and letting us get that side of the equation. Guys, make sure you catch Laura tonight on Dana White's Tuesday Contender Series. Contracts are getting given out tonight. But listen, when you think of the best in sports journalism, who do you think of? I think of Tim Bontemps and Raina Banks at ESPN, Michael Vaccaro at the New York Post, Rachel Axon from USA Today, and of course, our own Adrian Wojnarowski of the Woj podcast. St. Bonaventure University leveraged the insights from the successful alumni group to develop their online Master of Arts in Sports Journalism program. These days, it is not enough to be just skilled in traditional news reporting. Journalists need a variety of digital competencies like social media storytelling, podcasts, mobile experiences, and more. St. Bonaventure understands what it takes to be this modern-day journalist and how to tell compelling stories. The St. Bonaventure Sports Journalism Master's Program is 100% online. It has several start dates throughout the year, and it can be completed in as few as 18 months. So visit sbujournalism.com to follow your passion for athletics and storytelling today. That's sbujournalism.com. Now, Ryan, yesterday, Colby Covington is finally speaking. And yesterday he sat down with Brett Okamoto, and he had some very interesting things to say. This was one of them.
So what's it been like for you to try to get this rematch booked? What's it been like?
Man, it's been such a journey, and just it's been tough, bro. Like, it wasn't supposed to happen. They did not want it to happen. You know, his manager, you know, they were refusing. They were trying to find every way in the book out of fighting this rematch. They didn't want this fight, man. And the only reason they have to take is the UFC gave them no choice. They said, hey, you fight this fight or we just strip you. It's been tough. I had to go out, you know, and finish a former world champion in Woodley. You know, he got 2 easy paychecks against lightweights that should have never been there. You know, his last fight, he's beating a guy in Street Judas Masvidal. You're proud for beating that guy? That guy's a lightweight. He shouldn't even be up here in the top of the mountain.
What was going on behind the scenes in terms of, like, why weren't you more active, I suppose?
Yeah, the facts is no one wanted to fight me. I mean, go to Hunter Campbell, go to Dana White, ask them the truth. You know, no one would fight me. I was trying to put on the big and best fights for the UFC. No one wanted to take the bait. So now we are here, and we get the best fight in the welterweight division, and you know, it's going to be a real treat for the fans.
Man, let me tell you something. In that first fight, it was crazy. Usman and Covington were very active. Usman was super accurate. And in the later rounds, in a fight, Ryan, where it was 2-2 going into round 5, Usman gets the finish when he breaks Colby Covington's jaw. Now, the one thing that really stands out here with the 395 strikes that Covington threw, Usman throwing 360 and landing 175, Colby 143. Ryan Clark, nobody can keep up with the pace of Colby Covington. We have seen him melt so many individuals inside the octagon with his pace and his pressure. Usman was able to withstand that, and not only withstand that, but take it to the next level. But when Covington says it's been difficult to get this rematch, we thought we would have seen these two fight again a long time ago. So I wonder what it took for Colby to find himself locked in the octagon with Usman again in New York City. And you can see the relief that he feels knowing that he has to fight again.
Yeah, I mean, you see relief, but it's also Colby Covington, right? It's Colby Covington who understands how to build a fight. It's Colby Covington who understands how to make sure the spotlight is some way on him. And it's also very much like Colby Covington to feel like he's been done wrong in this process. But that's the great thing about the UFC. That's a great thing about prize fighting. Guess what? Every now and then, eventually you get your shot. And now he has his shot. And when you think about Kamaru Usman and the people that he's knocked out since Colby Covington, and also how much better we've seen Kamaru Usman look since that fight, I think Colby Covington was the day he leveled up. Honestly, to me, that going through that war, being under that type of intense pressure and showing the world that you could stand up to that pressure. I remember when they finally booked the fight, I went back to watch the first fight because I wanted to see it. And going into the 5th round, a guy I really respect, and I've said this before, named Daniel Cormier, says these are the best 170 pounders in the world. And I was in 100 complete agreement. I didn't see that night any other fighter that could beat Kamaru Usman. I didn't see that night any other fighter that could beat Colby Covington. And so now we finally get it again. This was the day, though, I started to respect Kamaru Usman in a different way. Man, I saw the pressure Colby Covington put on, right? I saw the clean shots that Kamaru Usman had to take. I also saw this dude walk through them. I also saw this dude, two of the greatest or two of the best grapplers or wrestlers at their size, say, you know what? I'm not really tripping on takedowns. right? I'm not really tripping on taking this fight to the mat because I know that we both can equalize each other there, or we both can minimize what we can do there. So we're going to throw hands. And that was the night we started to realize that this straight right that Kamaru Usman throws is different, bro. And we've seen it take out now Gilbert Burns. We've seen it take out now Jorge Masvidal. So it's going to be interesting strategically what these two dudes do, because you got to feel, if you're both of them, that you were fighting a winning fight.
You know the thing that this fight presents for me is that you got the two best welterweights in the world. I don't think for a second that anyone can beat these two, as you said. That night we learned how tough Kamaru Usman was and is today, because he had to really go through the fire. Now, the one thing about Colby Covington that really stands out, he's a guy that people love to hate, and we're going to get to that a little bit later in the show, but he says enough truths to where you have to take him serious. Because when he says it was hard to get this fight again, it absolutely was. When he says that we're the two best in the world, absolutely was. When he says that Kamaru Usman beat two lightweights, there's enough truth in that to where people can kind of go, well, Gilbert Burns did spend a really long portion of his career at 155. Masvidal for a long time fought 55. But these guys are not lightweights anymore. These are full-on welterweights that Kamaru Usman beat in impressive fashion, even though before they fought at lightweight. But Colby does a good job of telling you just enough truth. But if he's going to get the belt off of this dude right here, he's got to be willing to go and dig even deeper than he's ever dug before in his entire life. Because Kamaru Usman is an absolute savage. And speaking to Usman, as I do personally, I know that Usman loves being a champion. I saw him on Steve Harvey the other day buying his mom a house. Dude not only loves the fight, RC, he absolutely loves the life of a champion, and he is not going to let that go easily.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's a dude that shows it, right? He tell you, I'm pound for pound. Like, I'm the guy right now.
Well, he's the number one guy now.
Right.
He's number one guy.
Exactly. And I think the other piece of it for me is when I look back on the second Jorge Masvidal fight, where Jorge Masvidal kind of talked about taking the fight on short notice and lasting 5 rounds with the champ. All the champ did the entire fight was stomp on my feet, woo, woo, woo. Like all of these things that made it even more personal for Kamaru Usman. Now, if we go back to some of the pre-fight lead up, the last time these two dudes fought, it was flat out disrespectful. Straight up. It was flat out disrespectful. Like the fact that they even had the ability to contain what they felt emotionally was crazy to me.
Yes,
and so I think that this fight, you even get more of that, because now you're adding to that. Colby Covington is basically saying, DC, that Kamaru Usman was scared.
Ran away from, he's saying he was scared. Colby Covington's trying to say he's scared. But Ryan, hey, dude, we were in Brooklyn for a press conference before Stipe and I fought the second time. They had to keep them cats away from each other the whole time but then Colby kept walking up to Usman trying to initiate some sort of altercation. Dude, for as annoying as people see Colby Covington, he can be a master of building interest in a fight.
Yeah.
And the dude can absolutely fight. And I'm telling you one thing that speaks volumes to who you are as an athlete is when your enemies start to respect you. And one of Kamaru Usman's best training partners and friends, Justin Gaethje, also sat down with ESPN. And this is what he had to say about Colby Covington as they both fight in New York City in November.
Man, it's hard to not be biased. I dislike Colby like so much. So I want to see him really just put it on him. But he's a damn good fighter, that little piece of person, but he's a good fighter, good wrestler, hungry, stupid and crazy like we all are.
Hey, that speaks volumes though, Ryan. That speaks volumes when your enemies or your enemies' friends are respecting you in that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the tape is the tape. And I've always said that. Antonio Brown is a guy who I've obviously had my own run-ins personally with, right? And we have certain feelings. I mean, me and this dude had to be separated at practice more than one time. But I can sit and watch film, and I can sit and watch him play even now in Tampa Bay and say, you know what? This dude's one of the best to ever do it. And I think that's something that we as athletes can do, and it's part of respect. It's part of understanding how hard it is to do what we do for a living, to be a 2-division champ like you were, to be an undrafted free agent that played 13 years in the league and win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
You get what it is to try or to work to excel at what you do. And that's all Justin Gaethje is talking about. When you watch Colby Covington fight, the dude doesn't have weaknesses. He could take you to the ground and win there. Obviously, in the stand-up, it's relentless and continual pressure. And if you're Justin Gaethje, a man who fights in the same way, I think the greatest compliment you can give a UFC fighter is he's stupidly crazy like the rest of us. Because when I watch y'all dudes fight, I go, yeah, man, like that's stupid. Like that is stupid and that's crazy. The more I'm around you and the nicer I realize that you are, right? And I realize, you know what? Like DC is like a normal human. Like he loves his kids and his family and he goes to watch, middle school football games and he's a coach. I then think to myself, there's probably somebody that walks by you in the airport and thinks that they could take you. And we don't realize that to do what you did for a living, something ain't right.
RC, I'm smashing fools, especially just somebody's daddy that tries to whip me in the airport. You know what I'm saying? Somebody's daddy trying to beat me in the airport. They gonna get it real bad. Now, RC, one thing about Colby Covington is he gains an emotion. He riles people up. And there are a number of fighters and athletes around the world that do the same thing. So this week, we are going to draft once again the fighters or athletes that people just love to hate. So, Ryan, as you complain every single week, we'll have our friend Corporate Jake back to clearly lay out the rules of the draft that I am more than willing to abide by. Corporate Jake.
Corporate Jake left us. So we have
He done left.
Yeah, so we got a snake draft format, right? So I go, DC goes. I go, DC goes. We also have to select 3 MMA fighters, 2 non-MMA fighters. Also, no athlete can be selected twice. And I say this because every time we do a list that's a snake draft, all the people get on you. You're a casual, RC. You're a casual. Look at your list.
You do a good job.
The problem is you take my people sometimes because Corporate Jake gets my list of people I want to give, and he gives them to you so the MMA fighter doesn't look bad.
You think he's telling me?
He absolutely tells you.
Well, let's just say for the record, a few people have said that I've thrown a draft or two to try to help you, when in reality, you won one. You only won one. So, Ryan, this is the thing, right? It's football season. You're all over. So you're the pretty girl at the prom right now. And if Corporate Jake doesn't want to join us, we'll do it ourselves. So, RC, I'll let you choose first. Who's the first fighter that people love to hate?
So, I'm going to start this. The first fighter that people love to hate, and whether you disagree or not, it's the truth, even though I love him, is Conor McGregor.
Okay.
Conor McGregor is number one. The people show up, right? They're the people who are there who have the Ireland flag. They're the people who are there who have the accent and who love Conor McGregor. And now there's the whole other side that just show up, that just tune in to see him lose. He went from being the guy that was lovable and that was brash, but that was honest and that was able to foretell the future, to now the dude that sits on the floor or sits on the mat and talks about your wife, or the dude that talks about what his DMs look like. And it's hard to like that dude or love him.
He punched somebody in the face just a couple days ago. He done punched a DJ in the face. Could you imagine Conor McGregor tell you, hey man, let's hang out, we're gonna go party, and then by the end of the night you leave with a broken nose? Hey, like what is happening?
Yeah. So Conor McGregor has to be number one. I'm winning already. DC, you're up.
No, RC, you're winning, yes, because you chose Conor McGregor. He's the big. But guess what? I got one for you. Michael Bisping.
Golly.
Maybe. Hey, Michael the Count Bisping.
It's right there, DC. It's right there.
Hey, you may love Michael today, but let's not forget how you felt about Michael before. RC. Michael Bisping spit on somebody. Michael Bisping won a fight and spit on someone. Bisping was the guy that everybody hated. Bisping was a guy that recognized very early that it did not matter what your opinion was. It did not matter what type of emotion you pushed out. As long as there was an emotion, hate, love, don't matter. Michael Bisping got to it. He got right into your soul. It made you want to see him get beat. That's why when Dan Henderson knocked him out the way that he did,
everybody was fired up.
People were so happy
Yep.
because Michael Bisping drove people crazy. There you go. Michael Bisping. And then guess what?
You're back up.
Because it's a snake draft, I get to go again. And Corporate Jake just whispered in my ear, he's back now. At number 2, I'm going to tell you another guy people hated. People hated him in fighting. People loved when he used to get beat up. And people hated him when he tried to become a politician. Tito Ortiz, son. People hated
Bro, you must have
Tito
Googled.
Ortiz.
You Googled what's RC going to say.
I didn't Google it. No. Tito Ortiz, the Huntington Beach bad boy. People hate Tito, bro. I don't understand why they hated him and they hate him today. They hate Tito at a different level. They made Tito Ortiz stop being the mayor of Huntington Beach or whatever he was. Yes, he was not qualified for the job.
He was not.
But it did not last long. So yes, at number 2, Tito Ortiz, the Huntington Beach bad boy.
So at number 2, because it's my turn now. At number 2, I got a guy that has really tricked and fooled the world into thinking that he was a good human, into really thinking that, you know what, this guy is lovable, he's sweet, all of these different things. But as you watch his career go on, especially now that he's retired, we're seeing that less and less people love this dude. I may be one of the very few who still love this dude or even love this guy more than people loved him when he's fighting. At number 2, the person, the MMA fighter that people love to hate, I'm going with Daniel DC Cormier.
I used to get booed so bad, son. Every time I would hit that curtain, I would just get booed so bad. I never understood why. I don't understand why. I just would get booed so bad. So guess what? I don't want to put myself on a list, but Ryan, yes, people absolutely love to hate me. It was bad.
It was bad. I couldn't even understand why, because you were a Louisiana boy. I was like, this dude's authentic. Like, why is everybody getting on him because he cried? Like, he cried because he cared. But people just hated you, bro. It was what it was.
It was bad, son.
So I'm back up. At number 3,
Yep.
I'm going to be the first person to go off of the MMA UFC. At number 3, Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I didn't even think of Floyd.
Floyd Mayweather made his. So think about this. Let's go back to when Floyd's fighting Morales and Floyd's fighting at a smaller weight class where he's knocking people out, right? Where he's still aggressive, where he still fights offensively. Floyd was one of the best in the world, but nobody knew. Floyd wasn't making this money. So now Floyd moves up and he starts to do the 24/7s. He starts to do the behind the scenes, and he is always the heel, right? He's always the villain, talking about Arturo Gatti, right? Talking about Ricky Hatton, whoever it was. He made sure the build up to the fight was about him being the bully, about him being the bad guy, about him only wanting money. And the pay-per-view numbers began to rise and rise and rise, not because people tuned in to watch Floyd Mayweather win, because people tuned in to see Floyd Mayweather lose. And that is the height of loving to hate an athlete.
You want me to give you one?
Go ahead.
Want me to give you one? Oh, so we're going off of MMA because I've got some more MMA guys. Like, I've got one that's going to come a little bit later, but I got to give you one right now before you take him. I wasn't planning on taking him at 3, but you're going to get him. My man Sage the TD Garden Arena. Kyrie Irving. Dog,
are you serious?
Bro,
hey, Kyrie was walking around with Sage, bro.
Kyrie did Sage the TD Garden. Like, hey, dog, every morning I watch First Take, and I see people hating on Kyrie. So it's like, yes, people love to hate my man Kyrie. When Kyrie said all he want to do is ball. So at number 3, I got my man Kyrie Irving, and I still don't know why people hate Kyrie. Kyrie can be a little bit weird at times, but a lot of people can be weird. So at number 3, I'm taking my man Kyrie. At number 4, RC, I just need to take Kyrie before you took him. I know you was about to. At number 4, I'm going back to mixed martial arts.
Okay.
The original guy. When you only say he's only being himself and that everybody knows that he's like that, we got to just kind of treat him that way. When I walked in the AKA, bro, I was like, God, I can't stand this dude. And then I was like, everybody was like, he's just Kos. He's just being Kos, right? And I was like, oh, man. Josh Koscheck, bro. The blonde hair.
I love Josh Koscheck.
People hated Koscheck, dog. I have never in my life been in an arena like Canada when we walked out for him to fight Georges St. Pierre. I've never heard more boos in my entire life. I've never heard anything so loud than when Koscheck hit the curtain against GSP. But it wasn't just against GSP. It was everybody. Josh Koscheck went to Bellator after his UFC run phased out. And when he hit the curtain in Bellator, they booed him. It was like people just love to hate on Kos. So Josh Koscheck is my fourth person that MMA people just love to hate.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So this one, I'm gonna have to ask Corporate Jake how this flows, right? Where this guy lands. Is it MMA? Is it non-MMA? Right? Now, watch this sleeper though, DC. And I only brought this out because you went
trying
Kyrie.
to cheat. This dude trying to cheat.
Watch
you
this
trying
sleeper.
to cheat, bro.
Watch this sleeper.
You're actually trying to cheat, dog.
Corporate Jake,
that,
DC. At number 4, I'm going CM Punk. Game over. Game over.
Wait, people love CM Punk.
No.
CM Punk.
Every single fighter in the Diaz brothers, everybody hated the fact that CM Punk jumped up. No.
Time out.
No. Don't try to discount my list.
What are you using him as, a fighter?
What are we going to count him as? Because he fought, DC. They hated him. They hated him in the UFC. You know it. I know it.
He counts as an MMA representative in this draft.
Oh, he's cheating. He's cheating. He's really cheating. Wow, you went to the, I mean, come on, man. All right, man, go ahead.
Okay,
man.
and at number five, you may not agree with this, DC. And I didn't go Colby Covington because we talked about him. You may not agree with this. But for 20 years, all this man has done is excel. All this man has done is succeed. This man entered his profession with the lofty expectations that no one could ever.
I know. That's who I was gonna pick. Man.
No, I think you might be wrong. I think because we might be different. Because you went basketball already. So you could probably have Tom Brady because that's what you're gonna pick. I'm going LeBron James.
Of course, I knew that's what I was gonna pick.
Game.
It was LeBron.
Set. Match.
No,
it's a
not
wrap.
Over, but like. It was my
it's
guy.
A wrap.
I was gonna pick LeBron. I was gonna pick LeBron too.
Were you?
I was gonna pick LeBron.
It's a snake format, which I was wrong about, because snake means that you get to go twice back to back. Being that it's a snake format, I got to go CM Punk, right? Which totally wins. Then I got to go LeBron James, which everybody knows.
Oh,
most people hate LeBron James because of LeBron James fans. They're the most defensive fans that have ever lived in the history of sports. But on the other side of that, people don't want to see LeBron win. I don't know. Maybe it's because they compare him to Michael Jordan. I don't know. Maybe it's because they don't talk about Kobe Bryant being the greatest of all time because they talk about LeBron James. I don't know. But people hate LeBron. Don't nobody want to see LeBron win? And now, when you look at this list, right, look at the heel I have at number 2. How much more awful of a guy can you have at number 2?
But then you go and you tell like the guy that I was gonna pick afterwards, like you go and throw his name out there so that it makes less impact when I say it. It makes less. You're a cheater. My final pick is. I mean,
it sounds like somebody's a sore loser. Sounds
because you know who I'm gonna pick. So you know who I'm gonna pick, and then
I don't know.
It's like this guy. It's Thomas Patrick Brady III. I mean, what do you want me to do? It's Tom Brady. People hate winners. And you first off, you took my guy at LeBron, but then you also take the reasons people hate winners. And could we put Tom Brady's whole name, please? I don't want Tom Brady, Jake. Is there any way to fix that? I want Thomas Patrick Brady.
It's not how graphics work. It's not how graphics work.
Thanks, graphics. Thanks, graphics. I really appreciate it. But Tom Brady. 7 Super Bowl championships. First year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wins a championship. And listen, look, when Thomas Patrick Brady goes to the Bucs, poor Jameis. Hey, Ryan, poor Jameis. They put Jameis out there with the Bucs.
They did.
He ain't got all the tools.
Nope.
Tom Brady goes to the Bucs. He has every tool known to man, and he wins a Super Bowl. And
Crazy.
Tom Brady not only wins, but Tom Brady also jumps off the PJ with his boy Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, he do.
He do.
It was hard.
Kind of laughing and smirking.
It was real
hard, right?
That was hard.
It was real hard. But he's like, Tom Brady's telling you, hate me. I want you to. The more you hate me, the more it pushes me to become great. So, Ryan, as I look at my list,
you lose.
I'm not certain that you win. You seem like you're confident. But, I mean, that is a great list, Ryan Clark, by Daniel Cormier.
DC, that list is average at best. for someone to have been so good at their career yet so bad at picking lists is truly astonishing to me. I think this puts me up like 3-2, 4-1 maybe as we do lists.
If you've won today, which I doubt you have, that would be only your second victory. But Ryan, can I say something? Your list, right? It was surface. It was surface. You didn't have to really dig to get into the list that you got. It was surface, RC.
So when you say you had to dig, DC, mean you had to go to the second tier of athletes who are loved to be hated, right? So what you're basically saying is I picked the top 5 because it was so easy. And now you got like 10 through 15.
Well, I had Ken Shamrock. I had guys like that too, but then I couldn't use them because you started using the big names. So I had to kind of go surface with you, right? Sometimes when I'm being messy, at times you can be a tad bit messy. When you're with someone that's being a tad bit vain, likes the pretty girl at the prom, at times you can become vain. So I had to be a little bit vain, with you, where I'm just looking at the surface, the skin, looking at the pretty girl like you do, So we can be a bit petty at times.
I won. Period.
I
can't wait to post this one.
Well, here's the problem.
I can't wait to post this one.
You don't get to judge. We have to wait for the fans to decide. And, Ryan, at times when things don't go my way, and at times when I'm in a tough fight and I need to relax, I will pop onto my couch and I will have my good friend. And your good friend. Everybody's good friend. Modelo. Guys, you know what makes Modelo special? It's brewed for those with the fighting spirit. And you wouldn't expect anything less from the official beer of the UFC. Modelo was the underdog. It came from humble beginnings and they never gave up. It's brewed from premium hops to create a crisp Pilsner-style lager would set the standard for authentic Mexican beer. So the next time you're tuning into a UFC fight card, make sure you've got the beer that's always in your corner. Modelo, brewed for those with the fighting spirit. Drink responsibly. Beer imported. Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. I gotta be honest, RC. I'm not certain you won, man. I really do give you credit. It was a good list.
You know what I feel like? You're saying, DC? This is what this feels like. This feels like you're saying to me that I didn't actually get better at making a list, but I got smarter. And maybe getting smarter is better. Maybe I'm making the crowd feel like I'm in more control than I really am. Maybe that's what's happening.
RC, is it safe to say that Paulo Costa might have been number 6? Like, is it safe to say that Paulo Costa and his... Or maybe him and Marvin Vettori.
Yes.
Did Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori barely make the list of guys that people love to hate? So what's better, Ryan, than taking 2 guys that people love to hate than matching them up? Mm-hmm. Because even though these 2 are people that have tough personalities, Marvin saying he's smarter but not better, Costa saying that he drank too much wine the night before is why he lost to the greatest middleweight of all time. I know, it's crazy. These guys may put their foot in their mouth in terms of media, but when that octagon door closes, they are both absolute savages. Yeah. And this weekend, we get these 2 dudes fighting in the middleweight main event from the Apex, and they're both squarely in the top 5 and 2 absolute dogs at 185 pounds.
Yeah, this is the fight that I think you want to get and you have to get, especially after both of these men's last fight comes in losses to Izzy. When you go back to the Marvin Vettori Izzy second fight, Izzy was in total control. He was in more control. Yeah. He was in much more control than we saw in the first meeting between these 2 guys. But also, we thought that Vettori had entered a place in his career where he was ascending, right? Where he was a better fighter than the first time. And I think you see some of that saltiness in his comments after losing that fight, like he was smarter. That's almost saying like, dude, still soft, but you know what? He ran away from me the whole time. And now, also in Paulo Costa, when you listen to Dana White leading up to that fight against Izzy, what was the whole thing? He's going to make Izzy fight, right? He's going to make Israel Adesanya have to stand and fight. And he got ran through. It was one of the more dominant middleweight championship defenses we've ever seen. And so now these 2 dudes, they got something to prove. right? Not only something to prove in the sense of who they are in the octagon, but in the sense of like, who's the real you, bro? Like, are you a dude that comes to fight? Are you a dude that's prepared? Are you a dude that's going to stand in the octagon and deal with whatever's across from you? Or do you like fluffy circumstances? Do you like having the advantage?
Yeah.
And can we see, I want to know, can I see the Paulo Costa that we saw before fighting Izzy?
Yeah, you know, this fight is very important for both of these men because you got to stay relevant.
Yes.
When you lose to the champion, you have to do everything to stay relevant. And to get honestly, Vettori gets the #1 ranked guy in the world in his first fight back. And for Costa, he gets to fight a guy in the top 5. And if he wins and wins impressively, all he can hope for is changeover.
Right.
Changeover is more important for Marvin Vettori. If Robert Whittaker can beat Izzy, then Vettori becomes a viable contender once again. But if Izzy keeps his belt, it's hard to put Vettori back in there with him with 2 losses to Adesanya. But it's about relevancy. Both of these guys need this victory to stay relevant. But I just believe that with the styles of these 2 athletes, they're both so physical, they're both so gifted that you are guaranteed to have an absolute barn burner of a fight next weekend or this weekend in Las Vegas. But Ryan, you know what time it is, baby. It's time, Ryan. It's time to tap in. It's time to tap in and tap out. And Corporate Jake, let's go, baby. My favorite part of the show.
All right, following Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3, footage came out where you can hear Wilder say to Fury, "I don't respect you." So, RC, tap in or tap out on the lack of respect shown by Wilder?
I tap out on it. You know, initially I didn't have an issue with it from the sense of, like, these 2 dudes have bad blood. These 2 dudes don't get along. There's been trash talk, and it's absolutely been personal. I at least know from the Deontay Wilder side of it. But in that situation, when you have been beaten like that and also shown such heart for the fight, right? Such a high level of toughness, and you really gave us in having that last fight, a trilogy that we'd always remember when Tyson Fury comes over to squash it, which I thought was a sign of respect, right? That Tyson Fury was finally saying that you were a very, very worthy opponent. To then respond in that way, I think is something I'm going to tap out on, because it's better to just say nothing. It's better to dap him off and move on than to just be like, I don't respect you.
RZ, I'm tapping in, dog, because guess what? I'm a sore loser. It's like right now, like, if you do win this thing, we probably won't talk until next week because I'm just not messing with you.
We're going to text
like,
about
I don't,
it. Yeah, we're going to
I really don't. No, I'm just not going to respond. I'm a bad loser, son. I'm a bad loser, RC. It's just, the reality is this, though. There are so many emotions going into that fight. Right in the aftermath, I don't need you to hug and kiss me. That's where the issue arises, because guess what? The adrenaline is still rushing through your body, especially once you just got knocked out.
DC, well, how do you explain all the hugging and kissing that goes on in the UFC? The bowing and the standing in front of each other.
They are tripping. Let me tell you this last thing. I hugged Anderson Silva because he fought me on 2 days' notice and he saved my ability to go make money. Yes. Alexander Gustafsson, I had to. Like, when somebody pushes you to that point, what are you going to do? But Deontay got knocked out.
Right.
I'm telling you, to this day, RC, I still don't remember to walk back from the octagon to my locker room when I lost that fight at UFC 214 with Jones. You're still not there. So we don't even know if that's Deontay Wilder, like, coherently telling him, nah, man, I don't really mess with you like that.
So what you're saying, DC, so what you're saying about your career is, if you won, you could be respectful. If you lost, you could not be respectful. Is that what you're saying?
Come on, man. I grew up in Louisiana, man. You know this ain't new to you. I don't understand why you're acting surprised.
This is really why you were number 2 on my list. That's why.
No, I don't even understand why you're acting surprised. You grew up with people like me. Like, you grew up with a lot of Daniels right down the street.
I did.
Corporate J, give us another subject, man. Come on, Ryan.
Corey Anderson, following his latest win, proclaimed himself the best light heavyweight in the world. UFC light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz did not agree. So, DC, tap in or tap out on Jan taking the bait, Corey Anderson?
You know, Jan took the bait. I guess it's a tap in. It has to, right? Because he responded to him. Corey's doing a good job, though, right? Corey is building momentum, and Corey's building interest around him. That's one thing that Corey Anderson has never really done. he's never really fully got what the entire game entails. And it seems like now, with the exciting performances, but also with his ability to talk and kind of draw people into him, he's starting to finally get it. And it seems like right now, he's getting exactly what he needs. And I'm tapping in. If Jan is the better fighter as the UFC champion, the more high-profile fighter, you just kind of ignore it. But Jan Blachowicz can't, because he knows in the back of his head that Corey does own a victory over him, even though Jan knocked him out violently in New Mexico in the rematch.
Yeah, this is a tap in for me, because if you're Jan, you have to feel like you're constantly fighting for respect, right? This is a dude that, Izzy was talking about fighting John Jones forever, never made that move. Soon as Jan Blachowicz gets the belt, he moves up. Right? He moves up because he has a feeling of, I can move up and win this fight. And when another dude in a whole nother organization wins his fight against Ryan Bader in impressive fashion, it was quick, it was violent, right? It was everything we wanted to be. And when that guy proclaims, I'm the best doing this at this weight.
Especially after you just knocked him out last year, right?
Exactly. You gotta take that bait. You gotta take that bait.
Come on, man. Corporate Jake, you got one more for us?
Recently taking place at a Dave & Buster's. This footage just so happened to be sent to me of our Daniel Cormier hitting shot after shot, racking up a score of 50 points. So, DC, tap in or tap out that you are unbeatable at Pop-A-Shot.
Well, I tell you this right now. I'm tapping in that I am the Pop-A-Shot champ. Look at Ryan. Look at the wrist flow. Bang, bang, bang. That was, look at that, Ryan. That was a Dave & Buster's record by Daniel Cormier. And there's no way that you beat me, as I started to fatigue a little bit at the end. But look at that. That's my boy Ray right there. Look at the coaches from the football team. Everybody is like, wow, this dude is so good at basketball. How is he such a fantastic athlete? How does he do this? Ryan Clark, do you think you stand a chance? Because I'm thinking, honestly, at 5'11", 6 foot, I might dunk on you. I might dunk on you. I really might dunk on you.
First off, I'm tapping out. Did you forget about the 265 pounds too?
It don't matter. Hey, look, Ryan, look at this. Look at this part. The kid was playing me. He was like, hey, the kid was playing me, Ryan. The kid was like, hey, DC, can I play? I was like, put your $20 on the Pop-A-Shot machine, and then you can get some of the smoke.
So
you saw,
one, I'm tapping out, right? Because this is probably the 17th time you actually played the game and the first time you actually made shots. You videoed them all, you saved the videos, and then you put that one up so you can look better, as a better athlete. Like, I'm not stupid. I know how these things work. You basically did it like an IG model. You took 1,000 videos and 1,000 pictures, and you posted.
That was one shot.
And you posted the best one. Now, going into you and I, only one of us was an all-Metro high school basketball player.
I would dunk on you.
Only one of us got MVP votes in his district. Only one of us is a state champion in high school basketball in Louisiana. Let's not think that the guy who was spending his high school free time wrestling folks is going to beat the dude who spent his free time hooping and winning a ring, okay?
Ryan, would you please listen to me? Listen to me, Ryan. I have been called on multiple occasions, a young Karl Malone, the great Louisiana Tech power forward.
Did you say a young Karl Malone?
I have been compared to a young Karl Malone. When I was growing up in Louisiana, on multiple occasions, people have said, Daniel, wow, your turnaround jump shot, your post game, the way you roll off the pick, very reminiscent of Karl Malone.
Daniel, here's how I know you're lying. Nobody sets picks in pickup basketball.
Oh, yeah, we do. We set picks in Lafayette.
You know why you set picks in Lafayette? Because you're playing with other wrestlers. You only have free time when the other wrestlers have free time. Therefore, the dudes you playing with, they can't play either, DC. You act like you out here hooping with real hoopers, bro.
Baller. I am an absolute
DC,
baller.
Y'all boys out there hooping in leotards, DC.
Man, hate all you want. I'm an absolute baller. Guys, thank you so much for watching a brand new episode of DC and RC. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's Ryan Clark. And before we go, I got one last thing to say. Chop on Atlanta Braves. Let's go, baby. 2-0 over the Dodgers. We got it rolling.
Yeah.